After finishing a part-time job I was not accustomed to, I found myself walking down the street at night. The exhaustion had doubled because, during the day, I had been forced to help Tracy, my daughter-in-law who had returned from shopping, with the preparations for a party I couldn't even attend. But it was a celebration for my granddaughter, Amy. And just the thought of Matt being happy as a big brother kept my motivation up. As I passed by the house, I noticed the lights were still on. Looking at the clock, it was already past 9 p.m. It was about time to put Matt to bed. As I looked back at the house with this thought, I saw a sight that made me doubt my eyes. Matt was sitting alone in the garden, staring into the room. Why was Matt outside? Matt. What's wrong? As I rushed over, Matt smiled in relief and then, the next moment, his face crumpled as he began to cry. What happened? Why are you out here alone? Matt, seeming to want to say something, started with an apologetic tone. Today is Amy's birthday. But it's only a celebration for the family. So I'm not allowed to join. He said, sobbing. How could this happen? Unable to bear it, I silently pulled Matt's arm and walked out of the gate. Something that shouldn't have happened had happened again. You've been outside without eating anything since noon, haven't you? Grandma is tired from work and hungry too. Let's go eat something delicious. I spoke in my usual tone, trying to sound as cheerful as possible, to reassure Matt. Sensing something, Matt replied brightly. In the night, leaving Matt alone at our seats in the diner, I stood up from my seat. Pretending to go to the drink corner, I took out my mobile phone. I haven't contacted them in a while, but I wonder if they'll answer. After a few rings, a puzzled voice answered, "Hello?" I introduced myself and said sorry for calling late at night. Then briefly explained the situation Matt was in. The person on the phone said, "I'll come right away," and hung up. After a while, a woman entered the diner. She looked towards the entrance, raised her hand, and then hurried over to our table when she saw us. As Matt looked up at her with a "who is that" expression, she embraced him, unable to hold back her tears. Mom. Is that you? My name is Diane Holmes. I am 57 years old. My husband passed away a year ago, and I live in the house he left behind. Our family consists of my son, his wife, and 2 grandchildren, making us a family of 5. It's a complicated story, but my son Fred is divorced, and Tracy is his second wife. My elder grandchild, Matt, is from Fred's previous marriage, and thus, has no blood relation to Tracy and my younger grandchild, Amy. Fred came back to this house with Matt 3 years ago after his first wife cheated on him. At that time, Matt, who was not used to this house, became emotionally unstable, longing for his mother. He was only 2 years old. Seeing Matt like that, I took great care of him. The following year, Fred brought her home. Mom, I've decided to remarry her, he said, surprising me with the sudden news. I thought he was busy with work, but that was the reason. My own son had been neglecting his emotional instability to have fun. I was so appalled that I couldn't say anything to my own son. Also, she's pregnant. I was further shocked by this news. It might be sudden, but please take care of us. How can we kick them out knowing she's pregnant? Besides, the house is big and has spare rooms, so we thought we'd live here. That's okay, right? What a presumptuous attitude. But, how could I have thrown them out knowing there was a child in her belly? And so, life with my son, his wife, and the grandchildren began. I didn't know what Fred's first wife was like since I lived far away. But Tracy didn't do much housework. I saw her getting along with Matt, so she must not be a bad daughter-in-law. However, using pregnancy as an excuse, she left all the housework to me. Honestly, since I was working part-time, I had hoped she would help a little with the housework. But she always had an excuse, saying, "I have severe morning sickness," or "my stomach hurts." Having been pushed into a corner, I couldn't force the issue. She seemed like she was in good health. But I understood that the hardships of pregnancy vary from person to person. It feels like I'm being burdened with too much. Despite this, my husband, who always lent a sympathetic ear, was no longer around. If she says she's suffering, you should be more understanding. These days, no one appreciates a harsh mother-in-law. Rather than such a thing, "Is dinner ready yet?" I had tried talking to Fred about it once, but he just brushed my concerns aside. "Sorry to bother you with such a thing, being disappointed." I endured the heavy burden of these days. During this time, Amy was born. Since Matt was born while they were living far away, it was difficult for me to be involved in his life at first. Living with a baby brought immense joy. Not that I loved Matt any less. Witnessing the birth of new life, Matt's eyes sparkled with excitement. Pride in becoming a big brother. The determination to protect his little sister. I could feel these emotions coming from him. Without comparing the two young ones, I vowed to love them both equally. As Amy's upbringing began, Tracy became increasingly harsh toward Matt. Since Amy was her own, born from her womb, it seemed her affection for Amy overshadowed everything else. Postpartum mood swings are common, so I tried to be understanding. It was my role to support Matt in place of Tracy. Despite Tracy's worsening attitude, Matt wanted to believe in the kindness Tracy had shown him before. He tried his best to help out and get her attention. One day, after I returned home from my morning job, I could hear Tracy's loud yelling from outside. "Why can't you do such a simple thing? You've just made more work for me." It seemed she was scolding Matt for accidentally spilling the milk powder meant for Amy. "Come now, he was just trying to help. Isn't that enough?" I tried to calm Tracy, but she was met with resistance. "Just stay out of this. If you want to say something, you clean up this mess." Being scolded by a mother, even if she is not biologically related, can have an immeasurable impact on a child's emotions. The mix of sadness, frustration, and regret. Watching Matt try to hold back his tears and manage a multitude of feelings left me overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness. "Grandma will clean this up. You did your best, didn't you?" After comforting and calming Matt, I cleaned up the spilled powder. "Amy, if you make such a clumsy mistake, it's a no-no for you. Your brother really is useless, isn't he?" After giving us a disdainful glance, Tracy turned to speak to Amy, who still doesn't understand words. I struggled to contain my anger towards Tracy, who wouldn't even give Matt a second look. At dinner, noticing Matt's absence, I asked Tracy about him. "Where's Matt?" "I don't know. Maybe he ran away because I scolded him?" That simply couldn't be the case. Matt was only 4 years old. Where could he possibly run away to? Just then, Fred came home. Despite raising my concerns to Fred, saying, "I can't find Matt," he nonchalantly replied, "He's a boy, maybe he went to the nearby park or something." Anyway, hi Amy, showing no sign of worry at all. Even for a boy, it was already past 7 p.m. Shouldn't they be worried if he was at the park alone? I left my uneaten meal and rushed outside. I searched the park, the route to kindergarten, and the supermarket, but found no sign of Matt. Maybe he's returned home. With that thought, I headed back, and as I was about to open the front door, I heard a sound like metal being struck coming from the garden. Our garden wasn't very large, but there was a small shed. It seemed the sound was coming from there. I froze, thinking, could it be? No, that's impossible. Approaching cautiously, I heard banging and a faint voice. Matt. Is that you? When I opened the shed door, I found Matt sitting inside, crying. How could they do this? I carried Matt back to confront Tracy and Fred, who looked awkwardly at each other upon seeing my furious expression. What is the meaning of this? While holding a still sobbing Matt, I confronted the two of them. Fred stammered. Well, I just heard about it from Tracy. After glaring sharply at Fred's fumbling response, Tracy, without a hint of remorse, stated, "It's Matt's fault. He ruined Amy's milk." I couldn't believe their reasoning. Just because of a small mistake, they locked a little child in a shed. How could I eat knowing what they had done? I raised my voice. What are you talking about? You're the one who made him do it. Even so, this is too much. Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a mother? At my stern rebuke, Fred stepped in to mediate. Let's calm down a bit, Mom. Tracy is just tired and irritable from taking care of Amy. Please, cut her some slack. If you knew about it, you're just as guilty. Locking a 4-year-old in such a small, dark place. I was too upset to finish my words. I did try to stop her, thinking it was too much. It seemed Fred was trying to place all the blame on Tracy alone, which earned him a glare from her. Before stopping this woman, you should have let Matt out. Are you even his father? With the two of them silenced, I laid down a firm rule. If anything like this happens again, I'll have you both leave this house. But, with Fred in a panic and Tracy looking down, avoiding eye contact, I believed that after saying all this, surely such a thing would never happen again. Thinking this, I paid no further attention to the two of them. Instead, I bathed Matt, fed him a reheated dinner, and tucked him into a warm bed to sleep. During this time, Matt defended his parents desperately. It was my fault for making Mom angry. So, she's not bad. Dad just got back from work and was hungry because he's tired. I felt even more sorry for the brave little Matt. I resolved to keep a closer eye on their behavior. Although there were no apologies from them, I was more concerned about Matt's well-being. Despite the ordeal, Matt continued to help around the house, never losing his smile. Whether it was due to my vigilance or genuine remorse, the severe mistreatment of Matt seemed to cease. Tracy sometimes demanded too much help from Matt or was harsh, but Matt said, "Grandma, I'm okay. I want to be helpful to Mom. Plus, Amy is cute. As her big brother, I need to be strong." He said it so bravely, I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I found it hard to intervene further, fearing that it might worsen Tracy's mood and lead to more harsh treatment of Matt. Contrary to my worries, the attitude of the two towards Matt returned to how it was before Amy was born. It seems peace had returned despite my concerns. Gradually, I also felt relieved and life went back to its usual routine. 2 months had passed since that distressing incident, and peaceful days continued. One day, I was asked by my manager to change my shift. Normally, I only worked in the mornings, but it seemed they couldn't secure enough staff for the evening until closing. Since Matt's incident, I had already been working fewer shifts. And given my inability to refuse requests, I agreed to take on the shift. Though, aren't you going to work today, Mother? Surprised to see me at home during my usual work hours, Tracy struck up a conversation. There's a shift change today. I'll be working in the evening. So, I'm counting on you for dinner tonight. Tracy visibly showed her annoyance but suddenly brightened up with an idea. Then, let's have an early birthday party for Amy today. Knowing I would be absent due to work, it seemed I was not invited to the party. I wished to celebrate my granddaughter's first birthday too. I'll need to start preparing for the party right away and let Fred know to come home early. Ignoring my feelings, Tracy was pleased with her plan. Well then. I'm off to shop, so please watch Amy. Since you can't join the party, you can at least do that much for us. Using shopping as an excuse, Tracy was essentially giving me time alone with Amy. How selfish can one be? Feeling it was too troublesome to argue further, I quickly took Amy from Tracy and sent her off to shop. That evening, after finishing my shift at an unusual time, I was walking home in the dark. The day had been doubly tiring because I had to help Tracy, who had returned from shopping, with preparations for a party I couldn't even attend. But the thought of celebrating Amy's birthday and imagining Matt's happy face kept my spirits up. As I passed by the house, I noticed the lights were still on. Checking the time, it was already past 9 p.m. It was about time to put Matt to bed. I hope she hasn't left me to clean up. Looking towards the house again, I saw a sight that made me doubt my eyes. Matt was sitting alone in the garden, staring into the room. I couldn't understand what was happening. Why was Matt outside? I hurried to the entrance, rushing around to the garden from the side of the gate. Matt. What's wrong? As I approached, Matt looked relieved to see me but then burst into tears the next moment. What happened? Why are you out here all by yourself? Although I knew I shouldn't press him too much, I couldn't help myself. Matt just sobbed and couldn't answer. How about we go inside? He looked at me surprised, as if wanting to say something, and then hesitantly started to speak. Today is Amy's birthday. But they said it's a family-only celebration, and I can't join, he sobbed. How could they? I couldn't bear it any longer and silently pulled Matt by the arm, heading out of the gate. Something that shouldn't have happened, had happened again. What's wrong? Grandma, are you angry? Where are we going? His voice made me snap back to reality. You haven't eaten anything since lunch, right? Grandma is tired from work, and I'm hungry too. Let's go eat something delicious. Trying to sound as cheerful as possible to reassure Matt, he brightened up and responded positively. Taking a child to a diner at this late time. I worried about being judged by others, but no one, not even the staff, seemed to pay us any mind. Leaving Matt at the table, I stood up. I'm going to get some juice. Pretending to head to the drink corner, I took out my phone instead. I wondered, I haven't contacted them in a while, but I wonder if they'll answer. After a few rings, a puzzled voice answered, "Hello?" I introduced myself and said sorry for calling late at night. Then briefly explained the situation Matt was in. The person on the phone said, "I'll come right away," and hung up. Returning to the table, I found Matt munching on the fries he'd ordered. You took a while, huh? As I placed the Coke I'd gotten for him on the table, he looked at me anxiously. I wasn't sure what you'd like to drink, I lied, but Matt quickly brightened up. I love Coke, he declared, eagerly gulping it down. He's only 5. Coming to a diner at this hour, he didn't even fuss. Quietly waiting alone at the table, he even seemed so sensitive about adults' feelings. Why does such a good kid have to? I was so frustrated, all I could do was watch him eat his fries. After finishing his fries, Matt seemed restless. Want to order a hamburger too? I suggested. Matt's expression grew tense as he said, I wonder if we'll get in trouble if we don't go home soon. Even though he said that, we couldn't just go back home yet. I was pondering how to explain this to Matt when a woman entered the diner. She looked toward the entrance, raised her hand at us, and hurried to our table. Matt looked up at her with a questioning expression as she embraced him. Unable to hold back her tears. The woman I had called earlier on the phone was Emma, Matt's biological mother. Mom. Is it really you? Matt seemed to remember her. Fred and Emma divorced when Matt was about 2 years old, 3 years ago. Yet, Matt remembered his real mother, whom he had yearned for when he first came to our house. Emma, too, had never forgotten about Matt for even a moment. As the two calmed down from their emotional reunion, I explained everything to Emma. I told her about Tracy's harsh treatment towards Matt, how he was locked in the shed after spilling milk powder, and how he was excluded from Amy's birthday party today because he was not family. I'm sorry. I should have been more vigilant. No, Diane. You don't have to apologize. You've been protecting Matt, haven't you? And you called me here. I had hesitated to call Emma because Fred had told me she had an affair, leading to their divorce, but she seemed different from what I had imagined. I invited you thinking you're Matt's mother. But I hope I didn't cause any trouble? Do you have a new partner or family? While hesitating and beating around the bush, I tried to clarify. Then Emma raised her voice. I don't have anyone like that. All I needed was Matt. What did she mean by that? I shared what Fred had told me about the divorce. And Emma's face turned pale as she revealed the truth. The truth is, it was Fred and that woman who had an affair. Emma shared the real story while sadly looking at a sleeping Matt. She explained that Fred and Tracy had started their relationship around the time Matt was born. Then, a man claiming to be a lawyer suddenly appeared, accusing Emma of having an affair and neglecting Matt. He presented documents for a divorce, compensation, and child support. Emma, who had no recollection of such actions, had no one to turn to. After losing her parents at a young age and being left all alone in the world, she became estranged from her friends following her marriage to Fred. Being a full-time homemaker and devoted entirely to caring for baby Matt, her outings were limited, and her interactions with neighbors were merely at the level of greetings. In such a situation, with her already sparse social connections, gathering evidence to prove her innocence was challenging. The thought made my head spin. You could have turned to me. But I was so shocked by Fred's betrayal at the time, I even doubted you. Emma seemed regretful for not reaching out. I felt ashamed of my son's actions and regretted not connecting more closely with Emma at the time. I despised myself. I'm truly sorry. And now, are you still paying child support? Yes. I had some money left by my parents. And I was lucky to return to my job before marriage. I've been paying without fail, for Matt's sake. I couldn't bear to hear anymore. Unaware of these circumstances, I had been living comfortably with that couple. I don't even know how to apologize. It's okay, Diane. You've done nothing wrong. And now, I've finally been able to see Matt. That alone makes everything worth it. Emma's expression was serene. By the way, since Fred has custody, haven't you seen Matt at all? I broached the subject that had been bothering me. Emma's expression darkened as she whispered, since the divorce was finalized, not once, until today. What a situation. I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. Emma. I've made up my mind. The real parents of Matt are not those two, it's only you. I won't let them take Matt away from you ever again. Emma looked at me in surprise. Then, as if strongly agreeing with my resolution, she nodded firmly. Actually, I haven't been doing nothing. She explained that she had already hired a lawyer to address the unjustly demanded child support and to claim compensation from Fred and Tracy. According to the lawyer Emma hired, the lawyer Fred and Tracy had provided turned out to be just a friend, not a legitimate attorney. I'll help too. For Matt's sake. Thus, in the late hours at the diner, Emma and I formed a partnership. 3 months passed, and I continued living as usual, making sure not to let any harm come to Matt. One day, Emma and her lawyer came to our house. Fred and Tracy were taken aback and flustered, but I calmed them down and had them take a seat. What is the reason for your visit today? While Fred was visibly shaken, Tracy tried to appear bold. We're here today to discuss a compensation claim against you and Fred, and to negotiate the transfer of Matt's custody to me. Unwilling to be outdone, Emma also responded with calm composure. Compensation? That must be about you, right? I've heard it from Fred. Tracy mocked the former wife as if she were laughing at her. That makes sense, since you were Fred's affair partner. What nonsense. I met Fred after he divorced you. Fred remained silent, just listening to the exchange between his ex-wife and current wife. Let's all calm down. First, let's hear what the lawyer has to say. Pretending to be unaware of everything, I subtly directed the conversation towards Emma's turn. Please take a look at these documents. He spread out a report that was supposedly from the lawyer Fred and Tracy had arranged for their divorce. This is the report given by Mr. Fred Holmes' lawyer at the time of his divorce from Ms. Emma Collins. What does such an old document prove? Tracy was clearly flustered. What's wrong with that? I had a proper lawyer. As Fred tried to intervene, Emma's lawyer quickly continued. Was that really a lawyer? Which firm do they belong to? Fred was left speechless. Ignoring Fred's hesitation, the lawyer continued. As a fellow lawyer, I must say, this report lacks credibility. The evidence photos are clearly fabricated. And the testimonies about Ms. Collins neglecting child care are too vague. But that's the evidence that led to their divorce. Tracy desperately clung to her argument. Indeed, Ms. Collins did divorce under those circumstances. However, the demands for child support were excessively high. Despite making regular payments, she hasn't been allowed to see her child, has she? That's because Matt said he didn't want to see her. I screamed internally, that's not true. Thinking back to when Matt first came to our house. How desperately he sought his mother's presence. I was trembling with anger. But she did neglect him, right? Regardless of how vague, we did have testimonies. Regaining some composure, Tracy began to speak. Would you like to see the childcare diary I kept at the time? With that, Emma pulled out a worn letter-sized notebook. The cover read, Matt's childcare diary. Such a thing could easily be filled in afterward. However, as Emma silently flipped through the notebook, the color drained from Tracy's face. The pages were densely filled with detailed records of Matt's feedings, diaper changes, sleep times, and at the end of each day, a brief diary entry from Emma. Messages to Matt filled any available space. Tracy, raising a 1-year-old Amy, should understand. Could someone accused of neglect keep such a meticulous diary? Tracy was speechless. Watching Tracy's reaction, Fred appeared utterly confused. It was clear he had no understanding of proper childcare. In this diary, there are entries about Mr. Holmes' actions as well. Me. Fred looked exhausted. It's about you being late from work or going on business trips. Emma added sarcastically, implying she was well aware. A diary can't reveal an affair. Tracy was right. A diary alone couldn't serve as evidence. That was the hard part. Tracy looked triumphantly at Emma, but then suddenly began to panic. I kept Fred's credit card statements. I found them tucked in our household book after the divorce. Neither Tracy nor Fred had any response. On the days Fred claimed to be on business trips and didn't come home, the credit card statement listed an in. Ignoring the silent pair, Emma smoothly went on. And on the same day, there's a photo posted on a woman's social media. The hashtags include the inn's name and secret. That's just a coincidence. It could happen to anyone. Tracy began to flounder. Yes, But this woman, despite her secrets, is flaunting her belongings in the photo. Emma cornered them further. This watch in the photo is yours, isn't it, Fred? Tracy and Fred seemed to freeze. That kind of watch could be anywhere. Oh, so Tracy didn't know. That was a gift from my husband and me to Emma and Fred when they got married. It's a pair watch, completely custom made. I feigned innocence as I chimed in. That can't be. After a moment of silence. Enough already. Fred spoke in a defeated tone. Emma signaled to the lawyer. Since the person in question has admitted it, this will make things easier. We'll proceed with a settlement rather than taking this to court. I won't admit it. I'll even go to court. Despite Tracy's agitation, the lawyer continued. Let's also discuss the report created by the so-called fake lawyer, who has already shared everything with us after a discussion about a forgery of private documents. That traitor. It turns out the fake lawyer was a friend and former boyfriend of Tracy's, to whom she had been funneling part of Emma's compensation and child support. After discussing the crime of forgery, he was quite willing to share everything. Tracy seemed to have no will to fight left in her. Through the gap in the sliding door, Matt peeked in, asking, "Mom? What's happening?" "It's nothing," Emma responded, her face now clear and relieved. "Let's go home, to your mom's and your new home." Later, instead of settling, it went to court. This time, they hired a real lawyer, but the outcome was clear. Custody of Matt was granted to Emma. Fred and Tracy's past actions were deemed criminal. They were ordered to return the falsely claimed compensation and child support, and to pay compensation and child support to Emma. Following these events, Fred and Tracy blamed each other, ultimately leading to their divorce. Tracy was disowned by her family, and Amy was taken in by her grandparents. Tracy ended up in debt and turned to working in the adult industry, a consequence of her own actions. I cut ties with Fred. Who would take care of a criminal? Having sold the house they lived in, I now live a comfortable life alone. I had no interest in where Fred and Tracy are or what they're doing, though I heard they're still paying Emma. As for Emma, she and Matt occasionally visit me. Our relationship has evolved into something akin to friendship. Interestingly, Emma seemed to have a good rapport with the lawyer from that time. When I visit, I often give her relationship advice. And it seems the lawyer gets along well with Matt too. One day, while Emma was seeking relationship advice from me, Matt suddenly said, "Mom, I love it when you smile. And I'm happiest when you and that man are together." A year has passed since then. Today is the day Emma and Matt are visiting me. Unable to wait, I went down to the entrance of her building to meet them. Soon, I could see the two of them walking towards me. Matt was holding Emma's hand, considerate of her condition. Such a kind boy. I was impressed. "Diane, did you come down to meet us?" "Thank you." "Of course. I was looking forward to it. Besides," I took Emma's bag, glancing at her now visibly larger belly. "You're not just taking care of yourself anymore. I can't wait to meet the baby. Dad's looking forward to it too." Seeing their happy faces, I smiled. Outside, the air was enveloped in the warm embrace of spring.